Here's what people say about this turtle: that it can bite a broomstick clean in half, that it hasn't changed since before the dinosaurs died out, that nothing in the swamp can touch it. Almost none of that is exactly true. But the real story is stranger than the myth. Louisiana, the Atchafalaya Basin, the largest river swamp in the entire United States. 150 miles of cypress trees, tupelo groves, and water so dark with tannins you can't see 6 inches below the surface. Roughly 70% of this basin is forest. The rest is open marsh and slow, winding channels that barely seem to move at all. That darkness is the point. Because something the size of a manhole cover is sitting perfectly still down there. It hasn't moved in hours. It doesn't need to. What is it waiting for? Meet the alligator snapping turtle. Macrocheles taminki, if you want the scientific name, and North America's largest freshwater turtle. Not the largest in its category. Not the largest of its kind in one region. A big male can stretch to 29 inches across the shell. He can weigh up to 249 pounds. The single heaviest one ever verified came in at 251. Picture a manhole cover. Now imagine it's alive, covered in 3 rows of jagged, spiked ridges running from head to tail, with a hooked beak built to tear rather than chew. Even its eyes are strange. They sit on the sides of its head, not the front, the way almost every other turtle on Earth is built. It's a small detail. But once you notice it, this animal stops looking like a turtle at all and starts looking like something else entirely. Here's a question for you. If you saw that face rising slowly out of the mud in front of you, would you even recognize it? Most people don't. Not right away. And here's something the scientists themselves haven't settled. Some researchers now argue that what we've always called the alligator snapping turtle might actually be 3 separate species hiding under one name, not one animal at all. That debate isn't closed. There's no final verdict yet. Even the people who study this animal for a living are still arguing about exactly what it is they're looking at. But here's where the story gets genuinely bizarre. This turtle doesn't chase anything. It doesn't have to. It opens its mouth and goes completely still, as long as it takes, sometimes for hours at a stretch. And on its tongue, a small pink appendage begins to move. Slowly, rhythmically. To a passing fish, it looks exactly like a worm, wriggling in open water, completely unprotected. A fish swims in for what looks like an easy meal. The jaws close in a fraction of a second. There's no second chance once that strike happens. No warning beforehand either. Think about that for a moment. This animal evolved a living decoy inside its own mouth for the sole purpose of tricking other creatures into swimming toward their own death. Almost nothing else alive hunts quite like this. It isn't fast. It isn't aggressive. It just waits and lets curiosity do the rest of the work. Now, you'd think an animal built like this has no weaknesses at all. You'd be wrong, and this is exactly where the myth of total invincibility falls apart. Every year, between late April and mid-May, a female hauls herself out of the water and up onto land. Often the only time in her life she'll do this. She digs a nest in soft, sandy soil, usually within about 20 meters of the swamp's edge. She lays her eggs, somewhere between 17 and 52 of them in a single clutch, just once a year. Then she turns around, walks back into the water, and leaves. For good. There's no guarding, no return visit, nothing. That nest is now completely undefended, and something is already watching. Raccoons. Not alligators, not herons, not some larger swamp predator you'd expect to be the villain of this story. Raccoons. In one documented study tracking a river population of this species, raccoons located and destroyed 87% of every nest they came across. 87%. Do the math on that, and it means an average female might get only about 3 eggs out of an entire year's effort to actually hatch, out of dozens she laid. And here's the detail that should genuinely unsettle you. Researchers found that raccoons aren't even smelling these nests out. They're looking. Freshly disturbed dirt is the giveaway. A small patch of overturned soil is basically a signpost. A raccoon spots the mess a mother left behind while digging, and that's the end of that clutch. The single largest turtle in North America. And its greatest threat, for most of its early life, is a masked animal small enough to fit inside a storm drain. But survive that gauntlet. Survive to adulthood, and everything changes almost overnight. Once this turtle is fully grown, it has essentially no natural predators left in the wild. None. Except for one. Us. Over the last century, this species has declined by more than 50% across its entire historic range. Decades of over-harvesting for meat did most of that damage. Habitat loss did the rest. And fishing bycatch. Turtles caught unintentionally in nets and lines meant for something else entirely. Accounts for a significant share of the deaths recorded today, sometimes preceding direct harm to the animal itself. The IUCN currently classifies this species as vulnerable. In the United States, wildlife officials have proposed listing it as threatened under the Endangered Species Act. And in 2023, international trade protections on the species were tightened even further, moving it into a stricter category under global conservation agreements. And there's still more we simply don't know. Scientists haven't settled whether this is one species or 3. Nobody has an exact count of how many are actually left out in the wild today. And researchers are still actively working out exactly how this animal's bite changes as it grows, from a tiny hatchling all the way up to a 200-plus pound adult. For an animal this large, that's been quietly surviving in American swamps this entire time, there's still a surprising amount we don't fully understand. So let's go back to where we started. The myths. The broomstick snapped in half, the claim that it's remained untouched since before the dinosaurs vanished. Those don't hold up under a closer look. But the truth turns out to be just as strange, if not stranger. A living lure for a tongue. A hunter with almost no equal once it reaches adulthood, and almost no defense at all as an egg. A species so recently re-examined that scientists still can't fully agree on what to call it. That manhole cover-sized shape sitting motionless in the dark water? It's been surviving on a strategy that almost nothing else on Earth uses. So here's the question I want you to answer in the comments. What do you think is more dangerous to this turtle's survival? The raccoon waiting at the nest, or the century of human harvesting that cut its population in half? Drop your answer below. I'll pin the best one.